The Fyrún saga continues, and ends in this video, which is the conceptual DLC for Pokémon Brain and Pokémon Brawn, known as the King's Bounty. This is the final chapter and true climax to the Fyrún saga, as it offers a bunch of brand new Pokemon, forge form weapons, characters, and even introduces a new location in the form of a series of floating islands high above the Fyrún region, known as the Valhiminn Islands. Home to a brand new battle frontier, as this DLC will revolve around the return of the battle frontier, much how the last DLC, The Queen's Beauty, did Pokemon contests. While I still plan to upload a few more Fyrún videos, such as one featuring the entire Fyrún Pokedex, and one centered around the Forge Form mechanic, showcasing all of the Forge Form weapons and going more into detail about how it works, this is the last video of the Fyrún saga, wrapping up the story. So please allow me to take you on one last journey through the Fyrún region. For those of you who are new, I've been exploring my Nordic and Icelandic inspired Pokémon region, the Fyrún region, here on my YouTube channel, and over on my Instagram account at Mykelmon_regions, commissioning a series of talented artists to bring my ideas to life and take you on an exciting adventure through my imagination. But sadly, this adventure is coming to an end. If you enjoy the video, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and check out some of my previous videos as they introduce all of the Fyrún region's new Pokemon. I do, however, recommend watching the Fyrún Saga series in particular, so you're up to date with the story of the Fyrún region, its characters, and the new Forge Form mechanic and how it works, as a lot of that will be relevant to this video. But luckily for you, I recently made a supercut video putting the entire Fyrún Saga together in chronological order, and it's even streamlined for your viewing pleasure, featuring lots of new content as it introduces the Fyrún region's adorable new mythical Pokemon. And my last video, the first DLC, The Queen's Beauty, which is an absolutely enchanting tale through a series of islands inspired by the Faroe Islands, with a lot of fairy tale inspirations. Anyways, now on to the King's Bounty. As I mentioned, this chapter will focus a lot on the battle frontier, with the first half of the video being kind of like a whodidit. As the title suggests, there is a bounty on a certain somebody, as you'll soon see. I picked King's Bounty for the title, even though it doesn't really fit with the Brain, Brawn, or Beauty, because balance just didn't work. I couldn't find a title that really worked with the word balance, as much as I tried. But the real theme of this DLC is balance, and a lot of that will be explored through your adventures, not only in the Valhiminn Islands, but your challenges in the battle frontier. And it's even represented in some of the characters or their Pokemon teams, as you kind of learn the importance of using not just Brain, Brawn, or Beauty, but a combination of them all. The second chapter, however, is this epic, all-out war, Ragnarok-inspired story, where teams Brain, Brawn, Beauty, and the Fyrún League will all have to come together to stop this great force from destroying the Fyrún region. And while the major themes of Brain and Brawn were duality and division, the themes of this DLC are the opposite, being balance and unity. But I think one of my favorite things about this chapter is its new setting. As I said before, it takes place high above the Fyrún region in a series of floating islands called the Valhiminn Islands, inspired by Valhalla, which for those of you who don't know, is essentially the Norse version of heaven for fallen warriors ruled by the god Odin, the same god this expansion's mascot legendary Pokemon, Edlodin, is inspired by. So the name of this location is a play on Valhalla and Himinn, which is the Old Norse word for sky. Before diving into this story and exploring these islands, I'd like to introduce the new Pokemon found in this expansion in what is known as the Sea of Clouds between these major islands and on some of the smaller islands you can explore. And I absolutely love this new batch of Pokemon, which are obviously mostly flying types, and I hope you do as well. So let's start with the two Pokemon that shuttle people to and from the Valhiminn Islands, as it is far too high up to fly on just any old Pokemon. Starting with Jetray. Jetrays soar through the skies at incredible breakneck speeds. They are used as emergency shuttles to and from the Valhiminn Islands. Jetray, as I'm sure you could tell, is based on stingrays and jets. I know it's not my most original name, but sometimes a Pokemon name just needs to sound good. I felt a stingray would fit the aesthetics of the Sea of Clouds very nicely. As its dex entry mentioned, this pure flying type Pokemon is used to quickly transport people to and from the floating battle frontier, as it has a small pod attached to it. So let's say there's some sort of medical emergency, or someone important was needed for whatever reason, this would be their means of transportation, as it's the fastest way possible to travel through the skies. Jetray evolves into Colossor, which is essentially used as a plane to transport much larger groups of people to and from the Valhiminn Islands. While it's a lot slower than its pre-evolution, due to its massive size, it can carry a much larger transportation shuttle, making it the more commercial option. Its name being a play on Colossal and Soar. Colossor are used to transport passengers to and from the Valhiminn Islands. They are so big you can see them soaring through the sky far below in the Fyrún Region. Many trainers dreaming of one day catching one of their own. Now, Colossor is inspired by the pilot whale and airplanes. Get it? As it's a plane pilot, it flies. I don't know, I just thought this would be a fun concept. And I'm sure you're probably wondering how a stingray evolves into a whale, but I just thought that would be fun as well. And there have been weirder evolutions or jumps in Pokemon, and at the end of the day, the fact that they're both based on some kind of plane is what relates them. They also have the same color scheme, but I thought it would be fun to reverse their colors since they're so drastically different in shape and size, but to still convey some sort of synergy between them despite these differences, because they also have quite a lot of similarities. And once again, because it's much larger, this Pokemon is a lot slower, but it's also a lot tankier and hits even harder. I commissioned the talented artist Fetty Rex to bring this line to life, and he absolutely nailed it. Next up is the adorable Halofin. Touching the halo floating above Halofin's head is said to heal any illness or infection. Its name being a play on Halo and Fin, being inspired by an angelfish playing up its angelic features, including its halo, of course. Except these angelfish don't live in the ocean, but instead swim through the sea of clouds, where they swim, or I guess soar together, in large schools, usually accompanied by their evolution, Serafish. Its name comes from Seraph, as in an angelic being, and fish, inspired by the flying fish, playing up its pre-evolution's angelic features, especially in its wings, which are now more angel-like. Like Halofin, these Pokemon are found in the sky, or Sea of Clouds area rather, and not the ocean. I wanted really majestic and fantastical looking Pokemon to be found in the Sea of Clouds, all of which being based on some sort of sea creature, but tweaking their concepts so they fit right at home in the glorious Sea of Clouds. As I wanted some really magical Pokemon to be encountered as the players soar through the sky, as this is a very fantastical location. I commissioned the talented artist, an artist Astray, to help bring this line to life, and I had an absolute blast working with him, as I usually do. The next sea-inspired Pokemon found swimming in the vast Sea of Clouds is Skyfosa. Using their cloud-like body, they can summon a variety of weather conditions, depending on their mood, but be careful not to upset one, as it will create a tremendous thunderstorm. Its name is a play on the scientific name for jellyfish, Skyfosa, instead using a K instead of a C, spelling sky, as it is a cloud like jellyfish found slowly floating in the sky with raindrop-like tentacles. Although this is simply its lull form, because when its HP is low, its signature ability, Storm Surge, activates its storm form, giving it the electric typing and making its attack stats a lot higher, as this new form has more thunder-like stingers and a gray storm cloud body. And while this form is a heavy hitter, its regular law form would be a lot more defensive. I commissioned the talented Kai Fake Monzer to draw this Pokemon. This Pokemon has a counterpart exclusive to this DLC, despite making a couple appearances prior on Fantasia and Ragnar's teams, Iridescent, which is low-key my absolute favorite Fyrún Pokemon in general, and I'm so excited for it finally to make its big debut after much speculation. Whether at day or night, Iridescent paint the sky, leaving an array of dazzling bright lights in their wake. Like most of these lines, it's a flying type due to its location in the Sea of Clouds, with a cloud-like head or tail and rainbow-like body. This Pokemon is inspired by the ribbon eel and rainbows, with its name being a play on iridescent, as in showing luminous colors that seem to change when seen from different angles, and of course eel. It's also a nice reference to the Bifrost Bridge, which can lead to either Asgard or Valhalla. When looking for sea creatures to adapt into this Sea of Clouds location, I came across the ribbon eel and absolutely needed to make a Pokemon on it because the first thing I thought of for all of these sea creature Pokemon were things that could naturally be found in the sky, such as rainbows, planes, clouds, or angels. And when I first came across the ribbon eel, I instantly thought it looked like it could be a rainbow, or even the northern lights, and that would be a very fun concept. But like Skyfosa, Iridesceel also has another form, being its Aurora form, with colors like those found in the beautiful northern lights found in Arctic countries. And now dark clouds in its design, as it's only found at night. But unlike Skyfosa, this form is only aesthetic and doesn't change mid-battle, but instead which form you have is determined by what time of day you catch it at. So you'll find Iridesceel's rainbow form in the Sea of Clouds in the daytime, and Iridesceel's Aurora form at the nighttime. And as most of you know, while in Nordic Pokémon region, the Fyrún region is mostly inspired by Iceland, and in Iceland there are limited hours of daylight or darkness depending on the time of year, as Iceland has longer summer and winters. In the summertime there's only around 5 hours of darkness, known as the midnight sun, as the sun is still shining bright in the middle of the night within the summertime. And it's the opposite in the wintertime, where Icelanders only have around 5 hours of daylight, which is when the iconic northern lights are most visible. The enlonged summers and winters, as well as the daylight hours, would work exactly the same in the Fyrún region, by the way, which is where these forms came from. So originally I wanted to call these summer and winter forms, as with these limited hours, one would be a lot more common at this time of year, but with the Sawsbuck line already having summer and winter forms, and day and night forms being overdone, I went with the rainbow and aurora form, as both were fitting of its colors, which are still wonderful references to these dominant seasons within Iceland. Both being single stages with form changes, I consider Iridesceel and Skyfosa to be counterparts in a sense, with Iridesceel being horizontally as long as Skyfosa is vertically long. Iridesceel has a new signature ability, Refraction, that reflects a fraction of any special moves back at the user. And by that, I mean it just does damage when a special move is used on it, basically working like abilities such as Iron Barbs, but for special moves instead of physical contact moves. I know before it was shown to be on Fantasia or Ragnar's team, it was presumed by a lot of people to be a legendary Pokemon, and I can totally see why, as it's just so beautiful and majestic. However, it is not a legendary Pokemon, and I think that was probably due to the fact that it looks so long and big in a lot of the videos or images I showed it in, but it's actually nowhere near as big as I'm sure a lot of you probably think. Here's a size reference if that helps at all. Regardless, this is still just a glorious Pokemon. Like I said, it's my absolute favorite. And like the Jetray line, it was done by the talented artist Fetty Rex. There would be even more new Pokemon in the form of the new legendaries, but I'll introduce those along with the characters as they appear within the story. So without further ado, let's explore the story of the King's Bounty. The DLC would start with you going to your mother's Pokemon lab, where she informs you that you got a letter. Inside this letter is an exclusive ticket to the grand opening of the brand new battle frontier opening up in the Valhiminn Islands, high above the Fyrún region. She tells you what little she knows of the Valhiminn Islands from various stories, saying she thought they were only a myth, but they're said to have once been home to the divine Pokemon Edlodin and the 3 magical Pokemon that are said to serve it. She is very excited to explore the islands and learn more, as she whips out her own ticket to surprise you, but then laughs, saying you shouldn't be surprised. Of course the region's acting Pokemon professor would get an invite to such a grand event in the region, saying it will be a long overdue family trip. Your childhood best friend then barges into the lab in excitement, revealing the ticket they got as well, saying they had a letter with the ticket thanking them for the part they played in saving the Fyrún region. Your mother asks if you got a private letter as well. You look inside the envelope to pull one out with an ominous message on it reading, "The time has come for you to prove yourself worthy. You must face your past, present, and future in order to achieve your destiny. The fate of the Fyrún region is in your hands." Your mother, curious, seeing a strange look on your face, asks what it says. Your best friend rips it out of your hands and reads it out loud. They both seem puzzled by this, mentioning how creepy it is. Your mother then says she has heard Champion Odin has been missing without a trace since you defeated him, which was already implied in the post-game, saying this must be where he vanished off to since then, as this DLC takes place months after the main story of Pokémon Brain and Brawn and the Queen's Beauty DLC. So after getting your ticket, you go outside into your hometown of Apruna, only to be greeted by a giant jet ray and a flight pilot, who comes out of the attached shuttle to greet the three of you, saying it's an honor as they welcome you on board the small shuttle, which has just enough room for the three of you. Your friend makes a comment about how tight it is, saying they feel claustrophobic before the doors close. Your mother laughs, and you take off into the sky at record-breaking speeds towards the Valhiminn Islands. After getting off the shuttle at the landing station at the base of the battle frontier, the pilot will say he hopes you enjoyed the ride and tells you to enjoy yourselves. Your best friend will then say they feel sick to their stomach and that they're only giving 2 stars, and your mom says she has something in her bag that may help with that, in true motherly fashion. You're instantly greeted by former champion Odin, who despite losing his title still rules over the Fyrún Region because unlike the Loika region, the champion title and ruler status aren't one and the same in the Fyrún Region. For those of you unfamiliar with Champion Odin, he is stoic and stern and doesn't say much, but when he does, it's with purpose, sending chills down just about anyone's spine. Champion Odin is the hero chosen to wield the divine Pokemon and father of the forge form phenomenon, Edlodin, inspired by Norse god Odin. Champion Odin is growing weaker by the day, which is why his Pokemon Edlodin is seeking a new champion to succeed him and protect the Fyrún region. However, while he may no longer be in his prime, Odin is still a fierce warrior, having mastered the way of brain, brawn, and even beauty in his lifetime of experience, realizing the key to victory lies within the perfect balance of all of these things. Being omniscient, Edlodin has already told Odin everything he knows about you. In fact, Odin will later reveal he knew he was fated to lose the battle against you, but it really served as a test as Edlodin wanted to see for itself if you were worthy of wielding it, as Edlodin foresaw someone from within both Team Brain and Brawn having the power and influence to dismantle both teams, which is why it pushed the Pokemon League so hard to use Forge Form weapons to test all of the members of both groups to single out the chosen two. And it turns out Edlodin's prophecy came true, although the fight for the Fyrún region is far from over, as Edlodin has foreseen an even greater threat looming over the land. Playing such a major role in the story and having their names thrown around throughout your adventures, you didn't actually encounter Champion Odin or Edlodin until the climax of the story, so this DLC will flesh out their characters more and fill in some of the blanks explaining what they've been up to and offer some perspective on why they've done everything they have up to this point. Also, you'd finally be able to capture this legendary Pokemon and wield its powerful Forge Form weapon by the end of this expansion, inspired by Norse god Odin's magical spear in Norse mythology, which is actually where the King's Bounty symbol or logo comes from, as it's my own take on the Norse rune for that weapon, incorporating Edlodin's design into it, with the corners looking like feathers. And it even has a powerful signature move and ability to help it command the battle. Its signature ability, Solemn Decree, prevents opposing Pokemon from using the same move they used the previous turn, basically being a built-in torment, with its signature Ghost-type attack, Shadow Cyclone, lowering the target's highest stat, both of which being incredibly useful. In fact, its Forge Form weapon has its own signature ability, which is super broken in Forge Form battles, at least in the freestyle sections, as your Forge Force gauge charges twice as fast, making it that much easier to access your powerful finisher move. Champion Odin welcomes all of you, personally thanking you for all that you've done for the Fyrún region. Your rival makes a snarky comment, saying on the way back they want a smoother ride, pointing to one of the bigger Colossors with the shuttle attached. Champion Odin doesn't even crack a smile, as his face remains still. There's an awkward pause before he apologizes, but he says it was crucial he got you all here as soon as possible, without missing a beat. Your mother, intrigued by the statement, asks exactly what he means by that. Odin says the end is near, that this is the final test, as everyone gets chills, in which case your best friend asks him to stop being so vague and brings up your ominous letter saying, what is up with all this? The divine Pokemon Edlodin then lets itself out of its Pokeball and begins to speak because, as most of you know, the divine Pokemon are really the ones calling all the shots, saying the letter was written by it and that this battle frontier was designed specifically with the two of you in mind, far before you even started your journey through the Fyrún League. As once again, according to its visions, one of you having been a member of Team Brain or Brawn and both using your influence to dismantle the teams must be its next wielder and the chosen warrior to save the Fyrún region, but it's still not quite sure which one of you it is. Your mom then chimes in saying that if she knew you two would be so important, she would have never held off so long on giving both of you your starter Pokemon. but then gets serious again and then proceeds to ask if Loden is omniscient and can see the future, then how come it doesn't already know who the chosen hero is? In which case Loden states that its visions are vague, brief glimpses, feelings, and voices that aren't always clear, especially the closer they get to Ragnarok. Your mother then asks what role she plays in all this after being rushed here as well. Loden says that it foresaw someone with a dark heart on this very island, someone Odin knows and trusted, betraying him. Loden isn't sure how or when, but believes this event too is quickly approaching, given what it does know. So Odin says that he needed someone of her intellect with an outside eye to help find this culprit, as his own judgment could be clouded due to his implied connection between him and the culprit, saying she is the smartest and most reasonable person he knows. She says she'd be happy to help, of course, saying she definitely has a few more questions she'd like to ask to help narrow down some suspects. But before the conversation can go any further, a girl comes running in, interrupting it, her name being Twyla. She seems sweet as can be, overly bubbly in an exhausting way, almost fake, saying what an honor it is to meet all of you, and that Daddy has said so much about you. Your best friend then says, Daddy? In which case she gives Odin a big hug. Odin, as usual, not showing any kind of emotion, calmly introduces Twyla as his daughter. Odin says Twyla is an excellent Pokemon trainer, that for the longest time he was convinced that she'd be the one to one day succeed him, in which case she giggles, then totally switches tones and personalities, saying that is until you came along, before switching back to her perky personality and giggling once more to brush over what she just said. She says she looks forward to battling you to see what all this fuss is about, challenging you at the battlefield in the nearby city. She says she'd love to battle both of you actually, meaning your best friend as well, in a 2 versus 1 battle. Your best friend then says that hardly seems fair, and she says for the 2 of you. All serious in a lower tone once again, before covering it back up with another cheerful giggle. She then says, see you there, before running off. Your mother says how much she's grown since she last saw her, in which case Odin replies, you can say that again, but she's just as much of a handful as she's always been, and that he hopes that her new role as the Tower Tycoon of the Battle Tower will help discipline her even more and give her purpose. He then walks you through how the battle frontier works, before gifting both you and your best friend brand new battle armor to help you throughout the battle frontier and the prophesized battle to come, and walks away wishing you the best of luck. You then go up to an area known as Partner's Paradise, which, like the Blueberry Academy DLC, houses all of the previous starter Pokemon in the wild, including those from my other Fakemon regions. In fact, here you'd encounter the Pokemon Professor of my 3rd region, the Zone region, inspired by Brazil, Professor Palmera. That's right, he's just a kid, being a Pokemon prodigy at only 10 years old. But in the Zone region, will also act as your protagonist's primary rival, Pedro. Having become so successful at such a young age, Pedro is laid back as he's used to things going his way, and doesn't often stress over anything except maintaining his celebrity status, of course. A status he hopes to skyrocket by also becoming the next champion of the Zone region. Condescending and narcissistic at times, Pedro, as small as he is a lot to handle, with a big personality, but he has his reasons for being the way he is, which will be explored in depth within the upcoming Zone Chronicles, which will document the story of the Zone region on my YouTube channel, as he plays a vital role within that story as both the region's Pokemon Professor and your primary rival. But more on that later. Anyways, back to the Fyrún region and this DLC. Pedro was invited to the grand opening, as most professors from all over the Pokemon world were, as the professors were asked to leave their region's starter Pokemon behind so they can all inhabit this island. And you'd also be able to catch the Zone starters here. But don't hold your breath, because you will have to wait a little bit longer before I actually reveal the 3 starter Pokemon for the Zone region. I am sorry, but I promise you it will be worth it. Anyways, Pedro says this is his first exciting gig since becoming professor, and he couldn't say no to exploring a battle frontier on a floating island like this. He says he first has to talk to the old guy, meaning Odin, before dropping off his starters to see exactly what he gets out of it. Maybe some tickets for the battle park or circus, or even one of those cool forge form weapons. But he quickly recognizes you as champion and asks if you'd like to take a selfie. After this encounter, which is more of a cameo by the way, and totally optional, having no real effect on the story, you'd be able to progress to the city found on this island. where all of the people who work on this island live, as well as anyone who visits it stays. Here, you'll also have your 2 versus 1 battle with your best friend against Twyla. Your best friend will be using their starter Pokemon's final stage and their own divine Pokemon, the opposite mascot legendary. Twyla will be using the shared Lunatone and Solrock evolutions from the Fyrún Region Oblipse's Solar and Lunar form, followed by her ace Pokemon Absol and its counterpart Retri, which she will dual wield as Forge Form axes in this battle, which is a double battle, making for a tricky fight in the freestyle sections, especially as her attacks are relentless and swift, as most slasher type weapons are, but times that by 2. But since you are paired with your rival for this double battle, you won't be able to dual wield Forge Forms like you normally can in most double battles, but fear not, they do have a legendary Forge Form weapon at their disposal, and they will be helping you in the freestyle sections of the battle. And you'll also be battling her again, in which case you would be given a chance to dual wield Forge Form weapons. After defeating her, she switches personas again, just long enough to say you got lucky. Clearly not happy, that is until she flips the switch back to her bubbly personality, congratulating you, saying she looks forward to facing you in her battle tower, and she won't hold back next time, as a glimpse of her darker side shines through in this statement. She leaves and your good friend Ragnar then appears, saying, "You showed her," and being as perceptive as they are, that something felt off about her. Then saying maybe it was her atrocious hairstyle, as Ragnar's kinda brutal about fashion. Ragnar then takes a stab at your best friend, asking if they're still trying to end the world, in which case they respond that they are trying to save it actually, as they get into a little fight, before you both fill Ragnar in on what's going on, and the search for this mysterious culprit who's yet to actually commit a crime. That is, until the city and entire island goes dark. Everyone looks around confused. Odin then flies down holding Odin's spear, saying it has happened. He isn't sure how they got through security measures, but an important artifact was stolen from his vault chamber. Your best friend then points out that they were just battling Twyla, so if it's any consolation, it can't be her. Champion Odin, who normally doesn't show any emotion, actually gives a small grin in response to this statement, almost as if he's relieved. Odin then says there is nothing he could do, and Lodin warned him that this moment in time was inevitable and must happen, so now all that matters is that they find and catch the culprit before it is too late. But the two of you promise to help find the culprit, and Ragnar agrees to help as well. Odin then says he's going to put a large bounty out on the thief, and whoever finds them will be rewarded handsomely. Which is where the title comes into play, because people throughout the battle frontier, and even the Fyrún region down below, all want to get involved and find out who did this in whatever way they can for this large sum of money, which is what will end up uniting a lot of these groups, such as Team Brain, Team Brawn, and Team Beauty, even after being dismantled. You then go explore the island for clues and face the battle frontier, which is how you really crack the case. You can face them in almost any order. There are a few that you would have to face at certain points, but I'm going to go in the order I think makes the most sense given the clues provided. I'm gonna start off with the Battle Academy, as it's the closest to where we last left off. Ran by none other than the former Loika champion and king, Akeen, who apparently is an old friend of Odin's, as Odin appears to introduce him. Akeen moved to the Fyrún region just recently, as he's been traveling the world after being succeeded by his son Chidi as champion. He even moved his mother Tamala with him, as she now has her own garden area full of grass-type Pokemon for you to capture, including some from the Fyrún region. Don't worry, I will explain who replaces her in the Elite Four, as well as Gym Leaders Winter and Winda, who also moved to the Fyrún region, in the epilogue of the Fyrún region videos coming to my YouTube channel in early 2024. Akeen will say he is proud of both of his children, and that the Fyrún region is in good hands, as his daughter Anaya has succeeded his brother Abasi as the region's new Pokemon professor, taking over as the new Professor Baobab, both of which already doing far better than he or his brother could have ever dreamed of. So as a favor to his old friend Odin, he came to help get this battle frontier started. Odin saying, having run an entire kingdom, he felt Akeen is the perfect person to pass on his vast experiences and run the classroom here in the Battle Academy, as the Academy Director, saying Akeen is to this day the strongest trainer he's ever met. You'd even be able to face Akeen in the Battle Academy after passing several Pokemon-based tests, but in these battles you'll also be quizzed. Akeen will use a small team of 3, consisting of Dragon types Cookatrix, his ace Acrane, and legendary Garatina. That is correct. Just as like in the Hoenn and Sinnoh battle frontiers, all of these battle brains will be using legendary Pokemon. After defeating Akeen, he will suggest checking out the Battle Circus, as he says the Frontier Brain has given him nothing but bad or shady vibes, and he doesn't think he can be trusted. So naturally, the next facility in the Battle Frontier should be the Battle Circus, which is a crazy carnival ran by circus ringleader Loki. That's right, another familiar face. The former Team Brain leader has returned looking better than ever, taking the whole brain thing to the next level as a Frontier Brain. Loki actually has quite an interesting past that led him to the divine Pokemon Ilruz, which I didn't really cover in the original Fyrún saga, and this is why that divine Pokemon was able to use this past trauma to manipulate him. Loki has always been an oddball and outcast. He was an orphan who went home to home, growing up as most families found his zany personality and trickster ways to be too much. So he ended up finding a home within the circus, found on the boardwalk in the Fyrún region, along with other outcasts and oddities such as himself. Here, his quirks and dramatic flair were celebrated, but even his circus family ended up turning on him, as they too got tired of his mischievous ways, and the fact he seemed to think he was so much smarter than them. So once again, Loki felt his brilliance wasn't appreciated. That was until he ended up being chosen by the divine Pokemon Ilruz, who saw a lot of itself in Loki, choosing him to wield its power and Team Brain, as he had the perfect mind for it. Loki finally found a true family of people who not only understood his genius, but idolized him for it within Team Brain. Of course, they were unaware that Ilruz was the one calling all of the shots, but Loki was the face of the operation as far as they were concerned. So when you and your best friend dismantled Team Brain and Team Brawn, revealing that Loki was manipulated and fooled just like everyone else, Loki didn't take that well and was once again left without a family and humiliated. However, Odin, seeing Loki's true potential, gave him a second shot, offering him a role as a battle brain in the new battle frontier in the Valhiminn Islands, with Loki now running his own circus in the form of the Battle Circus, where oddities like him are all celebrated, and honoring his roots. In his battle tent, trainers must use the most obscure Pokemon and their own intellect to make the most of these underappreciated Pokemon. So you as a challenger use otherwise perceived to be weird or worthless Pokemon, such as Kisseltoe, against Loki's more intimidating mons, most of which are inspired by circus animals, including his ace legendary Pokemon in this battle, Solgaleo. After defeating Loki once again, they take a minute to both apologize and thank you for humbling them, opening their eyes to the truth about Ilruz and its master plan to conquer the Fyrún region. Loki seems to think Odin can't be trusted, however, saying that it could be playing the long game and using Odin and everyone else to achieve its own master plan, just like the other divine Pokemon did. Turns out your mother observed the whole battle looking for clues, and even was eavesdropping into your conversation, saying he made a good point, but considering who it came from, she's not sure what to think. Next, I want to hop over to the Battle Casino, which is ran by casino boss Ricardo, who is from the Zone region, but has casinos all throughout the Pokemon world, so expect him to pop up again not only in the Zone region, but in the Luika region as well. Ricardo, who specializes in Dark-type Pokemon, doesn't always play fair, as there are rumors he not only cheats, but has dabbled in illegal business practices as well. When you show up at the casino, you'd be greeted by Twyla, Odin, and your mother, Professor Aspen. Twyla says she suspects that Ricardo is the culprit, mentioning she has heard he has been involved in illegal activities in the past, helping to fund evil organizations such as Team Rocket or Team Flare with his shady business dealings. Her father seems surprised that she knows that, but says he is aware and that he has offered Ricardo a clean slate like a lot of the other Battle Brains, as the business and sponsors Ricardo brings in to the Battle Frontier helped fund the entire project. But his ace Pokemon, the Divined Lodin, seeing the future, already warned Odin of this past and promised him that Ricardo wouldn't be doing anything to betray Odin himself, at least as far as he can see. But then Twyla asks how her father can trust Lodin so blindly, especially as its visions aren't crystal clear. Odin asks his daughter where this talk is coming from, and then she says to him almost word for word exactly what Loki did to you, that the other two divine Pokemon, Stormer and Ilruz, manipulated both of their trainers to fulfill their own agendas. So how is he to know Lodin isn't doing the same thing with him? Odin is outraged by this outburst and tells her to never say such a thing again, telling her Lodin literally saved his life and has done nothing but good for him and the people of the Fyrún region. He then quickly tells you all how he met Lodin, as he was a fearless Pokemon trainer trying to become the very best, pushing himself just as hard as he did his Pokemon, giving himself and his Pokemon rigorous training in the Fyrún Region's harsh terrains and weather conditions, believing that their bond would be stronger as a result. One day while sailing out at sea and caught in a vicious storm, his boat capsized and he didn't have any water Pokemon handy. He was flailing at the surface of the raging waves before finally closing his eyes and sinking to his doom. But when he came to, he was on the shores of the black sand beach with Adlodin towering over top of him. Adlodin saved him from drowning, saying it has had his eyes on him for a while, impressed by his rigor and tenacity, and that he would make a great warrior, and foresaw his future as the next ruler of the Fyrún Region, a future where they'd fight together side by side, protecting the Fyrún Region from any threats that came its way. And of course, all of its predictions, big or small, ended up turning out to be true. And Odin's life was changed forever as he finally had the power he needed to be the very best trainer he could be, with Odin's power and wisdom allowing him to come into power. After sharing this emotional story with all of you, which is actually out of character for Champion Odin, as once again he doesn't normally express emotion, Ricardo will come out interrupting your conversation, saying to come in and experience his nicest casino yet. In your battle against Casino Boss Ricardo, you'd be gambling with your Pokemon's attacks as they are randomly selected, so make sure to choose your Pokemon wisely and that they have the best movesets possible. Ricardo uses some shady Dark-type Pokemon, including the legendary Zarude, which is his ace for this battle. However, he will only use 3 of these 6 Pokemon listed. It's always random, but you can guarantee that Zarude will always be on his team. After defeating him, Twyla will prove he cheated, and his moves weren't randomly selected like yours were, which was the requirement of the battle, furthering her theory he is the culprit. However, he has an alibi, as he claims he can use the casino's security cameras to prove he was in the casino participating in a poker tournament at the time of the incident, in which case Twyla points out that camera footage can be tampered with, and then she has a light bulb moment, as she says she thinks that the robot that runs the battle factory could be behind it, having tampered with the footage to give him a fake alibi. So naturally, your next stop is the battle factory to face factory head Rob, an AI robot built and programmed by inventor and electric gym leader Clement in the Kalos region. Rob is highly intelligent and even kind of funny for a robot, to the point it has its own quirky personality and isn't as monotone or robotic as I'm sure you'd probably think. This factory battle will function the same as in the Hoenn and Sinnoh League's Battle Frontier, so the Battle Factory is more dedicated to research and the subject of the research data Rob collected, as the knowledge and skills of the trainers will be put to use using rental Pokemon in battle. Before the player begins a battle, they will be told some information about the opponent's team and may switch one of the Pokemon they have with them with another one of the Pokemon used by the trainer they just defeated. Rob uses Steel-type Pokemon such as Combat, Medroid, Klinklang, Metagross, Magnezone, only 3 always randomly generated, but Rob will always use the legendary Pokemon Genesect. After defeating Rob, Twyla suddenly appears, destroying Rob using her 2 Forge Form weapons, much to everyone's surprise. She then says don't worry, that it can easily be rebuilt, but it's the only way to know for sure, as it turns out she's surprisingly really good with technology, which I guess shouldn't be too much of a surprise given her modern outfit, I suppose. But using what's left of Rob's body, she claims that Ricardo is innocent, but manages to uncover footage of a little girl with pink hair, Maisie, who runs the battle park in the chamber around the time of the incident. So next up you go to the battle park accompanied by your best friend and Ragnar, both of which who help you search the amusement park as you look for the park mascot Maisie. Maisie is an awkward, young, and rather immature girl with extraordinary Pokemon battling skills. Since she is found in an amusement park, I wanted to give her colorful, almost cotton candy-like colored hair. And honestly, I love her braces, as I think they really add extra character to the design. The only time she feels cool is when she's Pokemon battling, as she has always been bullied for her upbeat and dorky personality. When you find her, it turns out she's been wearing a Beware mascot costume all this time, which is why it was so hard to find her all along. But after you do, you challenge her to a battle which takes place on the park's battle coaster, where you pick a Pokemon and race it against hers, essentially hoping its speed is higher than the amusement park themed Pokemon she selects, as well as her shooting star legendary Pokemon, Jirachi. After defeating her, Ragnar and your best friend will lay into her, accusing her of stealing the artifact, in which case she will start crying, saying she promises she didn't do it. Your mother rolls in and comforts her in true motherly fashion, saying she believes her and found some interesting evidence to prove it. It turns out she's also been investigating and found out the footprints in the chamber using her lab equipment from her Pokemon research were too big to be Maisie's, and furthermore, that they have quite a strange shape. They aren't even human, as they match a Pokemon's, a Zoroark's to be exact. Ragnar then says the trainer who did this must have a Zoroark. Your best friend, being smart, and knowing both teams Brain and Brawn quite well, puts 2 and 2 together and says of course it's Loki, up to his old tricks again, as he has a Zoroark and is a master of illusions. So Loki must have used his Zoroark's illusion ability to disguise itself as Maisie to frame her. It also turns out the footage was doctored to make it look like Loki was in his facility at the time of the incident, when he wasn't. Loki is also smart enough to tamper with Rob's programming and edit the footage. So your best friend says that it's time to go give Loki a piece of your mind and collect that bounty. But your mother says not so fast, as she finds it strange that Twyla made the same exact point as Loki about not trusting Edlodin almost word for word, as if it was rehearsed. Ragnar then says of course, they are in on it together, as it would take 2 people, as Twyla also demonstrated the skills with technology after destroying Rob, which was probably done as a way to cover her tracks, which is why it was so sudden after you defeated Rob. Your rival says that's most likely why she wanted to battle the 2 of you at the time of the incident as her alibi and a distraction, as Loki went and stole the artifact. Your mother says you can't say anything to her father Odin until you know for sure. So you all devise a plan to suss her and Loki out while you battle her at her battle tower, saying she has to know you'd challenge her at her facility at some point, so this battle will probably serve as another distraction for her and Loki. So in this time, it's a safe bet that Loki would be making their next move, doing the dirty work for her, allowing Ragnar and your rival to catch them in the act. Which is exactly what happens, as battling Tower Tycoon Twyla acts as your normal battle tower experience, but this time with double battles, with her having legendary Zekrom and Reshiram on her team. You'd also be able to dual wield against her in this double battle, as you don't have your best friend helping you out. In this heated battle, your friends would catch Loki, foiling her plan, forcing her to reveal her real intentions, losing the good girl act entirely, as she now appears to be cold and calculative, saying you may think you stopped them, but you actually fell right into their trap. As it turns out, the Loki they captured was once again just his Zoroark in disguise. She laughs menacingly as the sky grows dark. She then says her father has always underestimated her. She was essentially promised she'd be the one to one day succeed him, not only as ruler of the Fyrún Region, but as the divine Pokemon Edlodin's next wielder. That is until she heard all the talk about you and your best friend, and the prophecy surrounding you two. She grew jealous and was determined to make sure if she couldn't have what she felt was rightfully hers, no one could. As she plans to awaken the legendary Pokemon Frostfire, using it to destroy the Fyrún Region, just to spite her father and Edlodin, showing them they messed up by not choosing her, as this is her way of proving she is superior to you two and everyone else. Twyla then jumps off the battle tower in true spectacular fashion, and when you go to look down over the ledge, she has magically disappeared. But with the dark clouds and a storm looming not only over the Valhiminn Islands, but the Fyrún region, you can all sense that something bad is about to happen. Your mother then claims she remembers how hot and cold Twyla used to always be as a child from the few interactions she had with her. She also remembers Odin confiding in her, saying Twyla, even at a young age, showed signs of a dark heart and almost had 2 split personalities early on. It was almost sudden, actually, as he even once came to her for parental guidance. So your mother seems to think Twyla really does have 2 personalities, saying if so, getting through to her better half may be the only way to stop her. Odin and Edlodin appear and say they are already aware of the truth, having just figured it out themselves, and are scared it may be too late, saying your only chance of stopping them from using this artifact to unleash the ancient destructive power of the legendary Pokemon is to unite and once again call upon the 3 legendary Pokemon that helped seal it away in the first place, saying all 3 are located here in the Valhiminn Islands on their own floating fortresses. So you'd set out to find these 3 legendary Pokemon, all of which inspired by the 3 Norns from Norse mythology. Like each of the 3 Norns, these 3 Pokemon will each represent the past, present, or future, with their names all incorporating the name of the Norn they are modeled after and destiny. These 3 were also all loosely inspired by the Sinnoh Lake Guardians. Just like that trio, they all share the same type, but this time being the fairy typing instead of the psychic typing. As I've often used the fairy typing, to represent time in my Pokémon regions. That being said, they each have a moveset utilizing either fire, ice, or electric type attacks, and while they don't actually have these types or get stabbed, their shared Serene Grace ability would increase the chances of their unique moves of one of these three typings, inflicting either the burn, frostbite, or paralyzed status condition. All three brought to life by one of the greatest Pokémon artists to ever live, Fungus Pokémon. You'd first end up on a spooky island home to Lodin's old castle and cemetery in the sky to honor the fallen warriors of the Fyrún region, known as Forghoul Island, a play on forgotten and ghoul. In fact, it turns out the former champion Odin and Lodin have been living here on the island since their defeat while working on the new battle frontier. Turns out all the frontier brains have also been staying here, living in luxury as well. I mean, if you consider this kind of creepy vibe luxury. It is within this creepy castle the chamber holding the rare artifact was stolen, so it would have taken the culprit some time to get here, but being as the frontier brains have all been staying here, it could have been just about anyone, as they've all had access. After arriving on the island, you'll be joined by your childhood best friend, as this island representing the past will have you both be hunted by your past together as you explore this ominous island. Your best friend tried to call you chicken, acting tough, but in reality they are really the ones scared, and will even get scared a few times throughout your exploration. As I'm sure you guessed, this island houses particularly ghost-type Pokemon, especially the cemetery area, many of which being new and exclusive to this DLC, others being Fyrún favorites, such as the Limbu line inspired by the Norse Draugr. Odin told you the Norn you seek is found in the mausoleum in the graveyard, however, it is locked, so you must look around the island for the key. I definitely suggest checking out the spooky sanctuary, because even though the key can't be found here, the old keystone item can be. With soul wisps scattered all throughout the Valhiminn Islands for you to collect, just like in Pokemon Legends Arceus. After collecting all 108 souls and returning to the sanctuary, you'd be able to battle a Spiritomb within this gorgeous chapel. This is actually the only way to catch Spiritomb in the Fyrún region, and in turn its new evolution within the Fyrún region, Phantomb, despite it being teased previously in the main games on both Champion Odin and Cynthia's Pokemon teams. And you'll want to catch it because not only does it have beefed up stats, but a new ability Midnight making it immune to fairy-type Pokemon, ultimately removing its only weakness and restoring it back to its former glory before the fairy-type existed. It even has a powerful new Forge Form weapon, exclusive to this DLC, like the one used by Cynthia, in the form of a Defender-type shield you'll want to acquire as it's one of the best Defender-type weapons in the game, especially having no weaknesses. To get to Lodin's former castle, you'd have to explore the courtyard and make it through the Garden Labyrinth, which has a few Soul Wisps and a lot of rare items, including a runestone found within, which can be used to evolve your Spiritomb into Phantomb. Although you'll also encounter wild Dark-type Pokemon in this maze of madness, some of which you'd want to catch as they are exclusive to this area. Inside the halls of Odlodin's ominous castle, you'd find even more powerful Ghost and Dark-type Pokemon, even some Dragon types, as well as a key to the mausoleum. You and your rival would also inspect the artifact chamber for clues. Odin would show up and tell you what exactly the artifact was, giving you the backstory on the legendary Pokemon Frostfire, which those of you who watched my pseudo-legendary video already know, but for those of you who don't, here's a quick refresher. Frostfire was a legendary Pokemon who once threatened the Fyrún region long ago when it was still known as the ancient Cedar region, causing Lodin to give birth to the Forge Form phenomenon to help combat this fierce foe, and select a chosen warrior to wield it, as Lodin felt that was the only way to defeat this beast. With the help of the three legendary Norns, Odin was able to split Frostfire's dual natures and imprison them each away in one of the region's two massive mountains, each capable of housing such elements, Ice Schult and Fire Schult Mountain. As a result, the two pseudo-legendaries Jotundra and Magnarok, inspired by Norse frost giant Ymir and fire giant Surtur lines, were born and can only be found on or around these two mountains. This is why these two are always at odds and have become mortal enemies, as the very existence of the other infuriates them, as it is a subconscious reminder that something is missing and that they are incomplete. Apparently, after splitting Frostfire's essence in two, the three Norns created an artifact called the Chaos Crown, which has the power to reunite Frostfire once more. So they housed it here in Lodin's chamber, each on their own islands found within the Valhiminn Islands to help guard it. Obviously they failed though, which is only because as Twyla was able to steal this artifact from Odin's chamber due to her close connection to him and careful planning. hoping to use it to awaken this beast and destroy the Fyrún region once again, just out of spite. Now that you have the key and a little more perspective on what you're up against, you can head back to the cemetery and finally get to the mausoleum, where you'd face off against the first of the Norn trio representing the past. It has fire-type moves at its disposal, as I felt fire fit the flames or candles burning in cemeteries or churches as a way to honor the past. After capturing this cutie, you'd be one step closer to using its power to once again seal Frostfire away after it's reborn. The next island represents the present and is home to a wide variety of Pokemon, especially of the Dragon typing, which is fitting given you'd explore this island alongside your pal, the Dragon-type specialist Ragnar, as the two of you reflect on your friendship and how it's all brought you here to this exact moment in time. Ragnar, still having their sharp personality, cracks some jokes saying they never trusted Twyla and wasn't gonna be fooled by another broad who bats her eyes after being betrayed in the last DLC by Freya. Ragnar also says of course you'd be the one to save the Fyrún region yet again, as if becoming champion and winning the Goldor Islands Pokemon Contest Festival wasn't already enough, saying greedy much, and that you are the dictionary definition of an overachiever, making everyone else look bad by comparison. But they're just happy to do whatever they can to help, especially after all you've done for them. This reflects the island's themes of the present, as Ragnar isn't dwelling on the past or fixating on the future, but rather living in the now, only focused on the matter at hand. You'd arrive at the base of the waterfall, where you'd find a cave entrance underneath the falls, leading you to a cave with a bunch of new Pokemon found in this expansion, with even more at the end of the tunnel by the island's large lake, and even more on the two shrines on each end of the island. One housing new fighting-type Pokemon, and the other psychic types, including Volormer and Wisdormer, which were previously a lot harder to find in the main game. These shrines and their represented types reflect the DLC's themes of balance between both Brain and Brawn, as you've come to learn the importance of using both, once again reflecting this island's theme of the present. Each shrine will also have an orb needed to unlock the door of the center shrine, which is home to many powerful Dragon-type Pokemon, including the Luika region's regal pseudo-legendary Acarane, which is exclusive to this DLC, as is its powerful Piercer-type Forge form, which is a Dragonic Spear, with the island's legendary Norn at the top with a shrine of its own. This Norn representing the present and utilizing Ice-type attacks, as I felt Ice represented being frozen in time. After catching this legendary Pokemon, you'd be encountered by your best friend and Odin, who tells you that Twyla has arrived down below in the Fyrún region, causing havoc, as she's using the Crown of Chaos to merge all of the Jotundra and Magnarok in the Fyrún region together to make not just one, but several Frostfire, all hellbent on finishing what they started and destroying the region. Odin also says all of the Fyrún League's gym leaders and Elite Four are doing their best to combat these feral Frostfire and protect any bystanders. Odin asks that you, your best friend, and Ragnar all use your influence over the former teams you each led, Team Brain, Team Brawn, and Beauty, to reunite them once more and have them all come together to help the Fyrún League fight in the war down below as you continue your quest to capture all of the legendary Norns. The three of you do as Odin asks, sending out urgent messages to all of your former teammates, uniting the three groups together to fight. Your best friend and Ragnar also feel they'd be more useful down below in the Fyrún region, fighting alongside their teams in the Fyrún League, wishing you the best of luck as you finish your quest, saying the fate of the Fyrún region is in your hands. Odin then tells your best friend that they can't leave, there's still a chance they're the chosen hero. They laugh and say that it's you, that it's always been you, and they know with absolute certainty that you will come through, you always do. Your friends take off to fight the war down below, and you'd be able to progress to the next island, which represents the future, which is evident in the futuristic architecture of this island, as this satellite island is apparently the hub, helping to monitor all of the Fyrún region's data and watching over it from above. On the last island, Odin told you the legendary Norn of this island is found in a secret lab within the mountain, but in order to access it, you must get the 4-digit code, which he'd happily give you if he could, but it's constantly changing for security measures. So you'd have to explore the various stations on the island in order to get a number for the 4-digit code. The generator station houses electric-type Pokemon. It is also the only location to find Rotom, as well as the appliances used to change its forms. The observation tower is home to a bunch of new Pokemon, particularly of the psychic typing. The neighboring factory is home to steel types, including the Fyrún duo, Combot and Metroid. as Iceland is home to the Icelandic Institute for Intelligent Machines, which is a newly founded center for research in areas of artificial intelligence, robotics, and advanced simulation. So Iceland is actually far more advanced than people realize. Anyways, these lines were used by Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny in the Fyrún region, and previously could only be acquired as gift Pokemon by completing side quests for them. Here, you'd finally be able to catch them in the wild, though. There's also a futuristic city on this island, home to its scientists and workers. There's even a Pokemon Center for you to heal your Pokemon on this island, as well as another station with part of the key code. After getting all 4 digits of the code, you'd be able to go to the secret lab in the mountain and unlock the gates, where you'd be able to battle and capture the last of the 3 legendary Norns representing the future, and using electric-type attacks, as I felt electricity fit technology and power. After catching the 3rd legendary Norn, you'd finally be able to fully embrace your future as the chosen hero and battle Odin and Adlodin once more. The freestyle sections of this battle would be exactly the same as the freestyle sections of your previous battle at the end of the original game, although Odin's team would see a slight change. This is your final test before Odin passes down the torch to you, and you are able not only to obtain the divine Pokemon Adlodin, but wield its powerful Forge Form weapon, which will be a game changer and your secret weapon in the final battle within the climax, as it's got a signature ability helping to charge your Forge Force gauge twice as fast, making it that much easier to continuously use your powerful finisher move. So you definitely want to make sure to add Adlodin to your team and use this weapon in the final battle. Now that you are finally Adlodin's new chosen warrior, you'll have a brief talk, as it says it's always sensed greatness in you, before you head back down to the Fyrún region to help fight alongside all of your friends. You go to the mountain's embrace area between both Ice Schult and Fire Schult Mountain, as it seems to be where all of the wild Jotundra and Magnarok seem to be meeting up to merge once more into Frostfire. So this will be the arena of the final battle, as you'd witness all of your friends fighting alongside one another, and even have a chance to fight a wild Frostfire in which you'd be able to catch. Frostfire is a Fire-Ice type legendary Pokemon with a powerful new ability and signature attack, which is treated as both a Fire and Ice type move. After doing so, you'd be approached by Twyla, who says she thought you'd never show up. It seems she is able to control all of the wild Frostfire using the Chaos Crown artifact, with an army of this legendary beast at her disposal. She says it turns out Adlodin has chosen you after all. Good for you, but it's too late. That it's time to settle this once and for all, as she proves herself to be superior to you, making her father and Adlodin regret not choosing her as she ends it all. This battle will be tough, as she uses a full team of 6, well, kind of. The Jotundra and Magnarok on her team will merge into Frostfire at the end of the battle, as there is a big cutscene in which she will then transform it into a powerful new Forge Form weapon, a dual blade representing each half of Frostfire. Like your previous battles against Twyla, this battle would be a double battle. In fact, your best friend will show up, saying they couldn't let you steal all the glory, and that maybe you're both the chosen heroes after all. That together there's nothing you can't do, as your friendship has gone full circle, as it has always been the heart and soul of the Fyrún saga. Once again, Twyla's attacks in the freestyle sections of this battle would be swift and deadly, as she also has a variety of fire and ice type special attacks at her disposal that engulf the field. One summoning several fire tornadoes, the other unleashing a chain of large ice spikes. In fact, it's best to just block or avoid her attacks the best you can, because they each do massive amounts of damage. And like some of the previous boss battles, she also has a one-hit KO attack in the freestyle sections, using both fire and ice, that has the power to end the battle then and there. So you have to disrupt her before she uses this move, her cue being her flipping her hair. You'd also have to contend with mini-bosses Jotundra and Magnarok in this battle, which would eventually merge into Frostfire mini-bosses. So needless to say, the freestyle sections of this battle would be intense, but you'd also have your best friend with their divine Pokemon to help you once again. They'd also fight alongside you in the turn-based double battle sections of this fight. As far as the turn-based sections go, Frostfire's Forge Form weapon has ridiculous stats, being the strongest Forge Form weapon in the entire game, and a signature ability allowing it to attack twice, as if it were 2 separate Pokemon in a double battle, which only works in double battles in place of dual wielding. I would once again recommend using Adlodin's Forge Form due to its handy ability to charge your Forge Force gauge twice as fast, not to mention its incredible stats. Its finisher move also sets up Misty Terrain, which comes in handy in this battle, as it helps prevent status conditions like the burn or frostbite status that Twyla can inflict with ease using Frostfire. There is a cutscene before finishing the battle after getting her health low enough where you'd be able to reach out to Twyla's nicer half. As it turns out, your mother was right, her mind does seem to be split. After this, the nicer half will remain still just long enough for you to finish her off, but you have to act fast because if you don't, her dark side will return and end the battle immediately. After defeating Twyla, you'd be able to snatch the Chaos Crown and control all of the Frostfire she created, saving some of your friends just in the nick of time, as many of them, including your mother, were up against a wall battling this formidable legendary Pokemon. Her nicer half will thank you, revealing her mind was split long ago after coming into contact with the Chaos Crown while she was a little girl playing in her father's chamber room. Since then, a small remainder of Frostfire's rage found within the item took her over and occasionally possesses her, much how the divine Pokemon did their chosen leaders. Although her dark side snaps, saying even with the crown there's no snuffing the darkness within her, it's far too late. Her father appears banishing her from the Fyrún region as she flees. But she will return in my upcoming Halloween special, Pokemon Descent of Darkness XD, which acts as a trilogy for the Pokemon Coliseum and Pokemon Gale of Darkness XD games, continuing the story of the Ori region within the shared universe of my Fyrún regions, and expanding upon the Ori region with new locations, characters, and shadow Pokemon. Perfect for spooky season. Anyways, everyone gathers together after the fierce battle, having put all of their differences aside to fight for the fate of the Fyrún region. Former enemies now appearing to be friends, complimenting one another, high-fiving, and hugging after all is said and done. Everyone united thanks to you. Your mother appears hugging you and your best friend, saying she knew you would come through and that she is proud of the two of you. Everyone else would also come to thank the two of you as the credits begin to roll. But fear not, this is not the end. I mean, it's the end of the story, but there's even more activities to do after beating the main story of this DLC. You'd be able to return to the Valhiminn Islands for some secret bosses like Reshiram and Zekrom, each at one of the shrines on the Dragon Island, both with forge marks, so you'd be able to access their formidable forge form hammers. You'd also be able to battle Dragon-type specialist Akeen here in his new Fyrún-inspired attire, as he now has an updated team of 6 and is wielding his ace Pokemon Acrane's forge form weapon, as he felt this is the best way to test his strength, unleashing an onslaught of powerful attacks and blinding lights to take control of the freestyle sections, with Wisdormer and Valormer mini-bosses to contend with as well in the freestyle sections. You'd also be able to battle Odin at the Battle Tower now, as he has replaced his daughter Twyla as the Tower Tycoon after her banishment, which he tells you has not been easy on him, as he implies in some of his dialogue, because he does love her despite everything she's done, especially now that he knows she was being controlled all this time, blaming himself actually, and hoping that she's okay wherever she is. You'd also have even little side stories similar to those in the Crown Tundra DLC, allowing you to capture Ultra Beast and Paradox Pokemon on each of the 3 islands after defeating Twyla. Ancient Pokemon would be found exclusively on the Past Island, Ultra Beast on the Present Island, and future Pokemon on the Future Island, of course. Anyways, that is it. I hope you enjoyed this DLC and the Fyrún saga, and the Fyrún region for that matter. If you did, please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and most importantly, leave a comment letting me know what your favorite new Pokemon or character in this expansion was. And don't forget to support all of the amazing artists who helped draw all of my concepts and designs so I could take you on this journey through my imagination. It's been a blast, and I cannot wait to explore even more with you, so please stay tuned for more.